going to be reviewing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse by Peter Ramsey for my final project. It was one of my favorite movies I've ever seen, one of the best movies of 2018, won Academy Award, the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature Film. There are so many great things about it that make it as good as it is, and a lot of it has to do with its execution in terms of story, visuals, and presentation, as well as its like cultural presence is the best way that I can describe it. It's not a unique story in the sense that it's it's a typical A Hero's Journey plot structure where you have Miles Morales getting bit by a spider and then having all these new responsibilities and having to grow and ultimately, in his case, save like his city and world as well as his friends and become like the best you can be. Like, that's not unique. What's unique about it is how the story is presented. You have a animated movie which takes a comic book story and presents it in like a 3D visual format, which isn't done like in the way they've done it before. Like, you have animated comic book movies that are what I like to call TV series, like movies where you have like animated TV series, but they're just on a movie level with longer story and just more focused on story. It's not that this movie isn't focused on story, but what it does is it takes like the authenticity and magic you have in like these 2D comics, right? Like, you can't find in really any other format. And what the movie does is it takes that and brings it on a 3D scale where it doesn't lose this, right? Like, big movies like Avengers and other Marvel Cinematic movies or other superhero movies that are like real movies, like they're really good, but they're different from this, right? Into the Spider-Verse doesn't lose that comic book feel to it, which I really like, and that can be seen in like certain visuals where there's comic book sounds or like what I like to call onomatopoeia blocks, where you have like an action and a visual sound of that action. I mean, visual like depiction of that action or sound. And like, it's subtle in the movie, but it's there. And I thought that was really cool. Like, that was a nice, unique, authentic touch that added life to this world. The other thing about it that was really powerful was the colors. Like, there wasn't so much thematic meaning in the colors for like the overall story and its meaning, but there was like definitely character assigned colors, right? Yeah, Miles had a lot of black, whites, and reds because that's what his suit ends up being when he becomes Spider-Man, that kind of stuff. Or the original Spider-Man, right? Like Peter Parker, his suit is blue and red, and that kind of theme followed around him. Spider-Girl, hers was white, green, and pink. Like, that followed her as well. The thing about color that was really cool was there was definite, like, color was definitely used to set tones for scenes, where you had certain scenes where, like, if it was a darker, more serious, more danger imminent scene, you had a lot of darker tones present, like black and purple, and more often than not, the color on screen was desaturated. It kind of like pulled you out of the story a little bit and out of the world, and it like lost its life. It lost its vibrancy. This can be seen when looking at scenes where Miles's uncle got shot, how it got progressively like less vibrant and into a darker scenario, like even in the alley, or when Peter Parker first dies, like early on in the movie. In contrast, you also have scenarios where the world is much more vibrant and has a whole bunch more life to it. And like, this is seen like early in the movie where Miles is with his uncle and is putting graffiti on the subway walls, and it really pulls you into the world, and it gives this sense of like happy and like feeling to it. The other use of color that was really cool was the whole interdimensionality aspect of it, where you have multi-dimensions crashing into each other, and there's just this clash of colors at like a high intensity, subjugating ones next to each other, and it creates this like discordant and like anxious feeling, which is really cool in the sense that like that's what the characters were experiencing, especially ones that came from multi dimensions as their like cells reading away. So I thought that was a nice touch. And then the other thing that I really want to touch on was the cultural aspect of this movie. When looking at the early Spider-Man films, like in the early 2000s with Tobey Maguire, they were very whitewashed, and I didn't really think about that until watching this one. They're a very whitewashed film. Like, even the soundtrack, and this is where like this afterthought came from, was like looking at a soundtrack description for the movie for Into the Spider-Verse. The soundtrack of those earlier Tobey Maguire movies was very like homogenous. You had like Sum 41, people from Nickelback, Aerosmith, like all those kinds of groups and like styles, but like the soundtrack for this movie was very diverse and came from like several like cultural artists, and I thought that was really cool. And nice thing that I learned was that the soundtrack was written like for the movie, even though the songs didn't sound like movie songs. Like, it didn't sound like a movie score, it just sounded like a lot of like popular songs, but all those songs are written for the movie and ended up being really good and added to the whole cacophony of the world. So as a whole, like, I don't think the story of the movie was unique or revolutionary, or it wasn't a like profound deep thinking movie, but what made it so great was that it gave a unique style and way to tell comic book stories that hasn't really been seen before and was really enjoyable to watch.